The music throbbed gently with life, weaving through the soft glow of warm lights that spilled across the room in golden streams. Laughter rose and fell like ripples on a quiet lake, mingling with the hum of conversation as guests twirled, clinked glasses, and swayed in easy rhythm. I stood near the snack-laden table, nursing a drink now half forgotten, its coolness fading as condensation slipped down the side of the glass. My gaze, however, hadn't strayed from one spot. My wife, across the room, radiant in an emerald dress that caught the light and shimmered with every graceful movement. She was surrounded by her closest friends, their circle tight and lively, and though I had watched her nearly the entire hour, her eyes never once sought mine. We'd arrived together, invited by one of her co-workers for what was meant to be a relaxed, casual evening. But from the moment we stepped inside, she had melted into the crowd as though she'd always belonged there, effortless, untethered. I, on the other hand, felt anchored in the corner like a misplaced stone, heavy and out of rhythm with everything around me. Earlier in the night, I'd tried to join her. Just a soft comment, a small joke, the light touch of my fingers along her arm, a gesture so familiar it once would have earned me a smile. But tonight, it earned a faint laugh and a distracted nod before she turned back to her friends. I hovered at the edge of the conversation for a moment longer, hoping she'd glance back, pull me in with a word, a look, but she didn't. So I drifted away, unseen. The music grew louder, the dance floor swelling with couples moving in sync. The floorboards vibrated gently beneath my shoes as I leaned against the wall. Watching from the sidelines, I sipped my drink, slowly, eyes flicking to my watch, wondering how much longer I had to pretend before slipping away wouldn't seem rude. I wasn't angry, not exactly. What I felt was quieter than that, a dull, persistent ache blooming in my chest. 5 years of marriage had come with inevitable shifts, the tides of familiarity. But tonight I felt like a ghost orbiting a planet that no longer recognized me. Someone brushed past, laughter ringing out, and I instinctively stepped aside, bumping into a tall potted plant. I managed an awkward smile, adjusted my jacket, and glanced again toward my wife. She was laughing, her head tilted back, the curve of her neck elegant, a wine glass poised in her hand like it belonged there. She looked entirely at home. I, on the other hand, hadn't been introduced to a single person all evening. Not once had she pulled me into a photo. Not once had she reached for my hand. When someone had asked if she came alone, I'd overheard her chuckle and say, "No, my husband's around somewhere." Like I was an old umbrella she couldn't quite recall where she'd left. That one offhand comment stung more than I expected. It shouldn't have. I knew she didn't mean it cruelly, but the dismissal had weight. To pass the time, I pulled out my phone and scrolled aimlessly, pretending I had something to do, someone to text. I could feel the party carrying on around me, a current I no longer knew how to swim in. And then I saw her. She approached with quiet confidence, her navy gown catching the light in sleek folds. About my wife's age, she had kind eyes and a smile that felt unexpectedly warm. "Hey," she said gently, tilting her head. "You look like you're trying to vanish into the wallpaper." I blinked, startled, and let out a soft, self-conscious chuckle. "Feels like I already have." I thought. She studied me with a kind of recognition. "I've seen you before, haven't I? You're Hannah's husband, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, that's me. I'm Tessa," she said, offering her hand. "We met briefly at that art gallery thing last year." "Oh yeah," I replied, shaking her hand. "I remember." She paused, then tilted her head again. "You okay? You seem a little adrift." I exhaled, the breath slipping from me before I could hold it back, and gave a vague shrug. "Just not really my crowd tonight." She gave a soft laugh. "Not mine either. But you don't have to stand here like a forgotten statue." Then, without waiting, she reached for my hand. "Come on," she said with a playful grin. "Dance with me." I froze for a heartbeat, thrown off. "What? Dance with me?" She repeated, light but firm. "You're allowed to have a little fun, too, you know." I hesitated, my eyes instinctively darting toward my wife. She was still deep in conversation. Unaware, she hadn't looked over once. Tessa's smile didn't falter. "Don't overthink it," she said. "It's just a dance." Maybe it was the warmth in her voice, or maybe I was just tired of standing still. forgotten in a crowded room. I let her lead me toward the dance floor. Lights swirled overhead as we moved through the crowd, the beat vibrating up from the floor into our feet. At first, I was stiff, overly conscious of every step, every movement. But Tessa danced with an ease that didn't draw attention, just joy, a simple, unpretentious kind of presence. And slowly, something in me began to loosen. She laughed, clapped her hands gently, and said, "There you go. I knew you weren't made of marble." I laughed, truly laughed, and let myself fall into rhythm. For the first time all night, I didn't feel like I was vanishing into the background. We danced through 2, maybe 3 songs, I lost count. In those fleeting moments, the heavy ache in my chest lifted, the room blurred, and the noise faded. It felt like we'd created a little space that belonged to no one else. Then I saw her, my wife, standing across the room, watching. Her conversation had stalled, her wine glass poised midair, her expression unreadable. I didn't stop dancing, but something flickered inside, an odd twist of emotions, part defiance, part guilt, part something I couldn't quite name. When the music ended, Tessa leaned in close. "Thanks for saying yes," she said warmly. "No," I replied, my voice quieter. "Thank you. I needed that." She smiled, gave my shoulder a soft pat, and then drifted back into the crowd as if she'd never been there. I stood alone once again, though lighter somehow. A minute later, my wife approached. Her expression was tighter now, something stormy brewing beneath the surface. "You were dancing?" she asked, her voice low. I met her eyes. "Yeah, with Tessa," she clarified. I nodded. "You were busy." She went quiet, her fingers toying nervously with her bracelet. "I didn't know you felt left out." I didn't reply. The silence that settled between us was dense with things we hadn't said. "In weeks, months, maybe. I'm sorry," she said at last, voice soft. "I guess I got caught up in the moment." I gave a slow nod. "It happens." We stood there, the party moving around us like we were standing in a still pool. For the first time that evening, I felt her really looking at me, not glancing past or through me, but truly seeing me. After a long pause, she asked, "Want to dance?" Her voice was tentative. I looked at her, weighing the question. "Only if you mean it, not because you feel guilty." Her eyes flickered. "I mean it," she said softly. So we stepped out onto the floor together. The music had softened into something slower, gentler. We moved together in quiet steps, not perfectly in sync, but close. Something subtle shifted between us, not a resolution, not a grand fix, but a recognition, a re-anchoring. For that one small moment, she was here with me again, and for now, that was enough.